Today we will be talking about animal reproduction, both sexual and asexual. So, just to review what you have learned yesterday, we're going to you're going to answer. I'm going to read a characteristic, and then you're going to answer if it is sexual or asexual, or it is associated with sexual or asexual reproduction. So, in the chat box, kindly write A for asexual or S for sexual. All right, so let us begin. This type of reproduction involves two parents. Mm, What is this? SSS. All right. That is correct. It is indeed sexual. Okay, so sexual reproduction involves two parents. Dapat ano siya, no? Dapat pareho sa, dili pareho, sorry. Dapat male ang usa, din ang usa kay female. So male gamit and female gamit. So it needs to be the two. Dili pwede nga puro ra sila female kay kuan. Walay mabuhat ana. Oo. Okay, next is you have an identical offspring, identical to the parent, that is. Ang iyang genetic makeup, ang iyang look, ang iyang everything is purely identical to the parent. All right, that is correct. It is indeed letter A, asexual. So, if you remember in sexual reproduction, a sexual reproduction only involves one parent. All right, so one parent. Therefore, the offspring of that particular parent will be a completely identical offspring to to that parent, to it. Okay, another one is this type of reproduction only involves one parent. I think this is very, ano na, very obvious. This is quite obvious already. All right, that is indeed correct. This is asexual reproduction. Okay, next is the offspring of the parent or parents is not identical to the parent. Genetically not identical to the parent. That is indeed correct. So that is sexual reproduction. And why is that the case? Because remember, sexual reproduction involves the fusion of the male and the female gamete. Now, when that happens, ang mga genes no mag-merge na sila, mag-combine na sila. So different kinds of combinations, depende na lang dahil unsa ang ma-express niya. All right, next is this type of reproduction passes on DNA from the parent to the offspring. It passes off DNA from the parent to the offspring. Right? Sexual lang ba ni siya? Kanang ang DNA kay gikan sa parent paingon sa offspring. Is this only sexual? What do you think? Think about it. Ang DNA kay gikan sa parent, gi-adto din siya sa offspring. Is this only sexual? What do you think? Okay, that's correct. It should be both. Both man sila. Reproduction needs DNA from the parent, whether it will only have one parent or two parents. So this is sexual and asexual. Ayan. Next is bacteria, protists, some plants, and yeast are able to reproduce this way. Is this sexual or asexual reproduction? All right, that's correct. This is indeed asexual. And lastly, fish, mammals, amphibians, birds, reptiles, and insects are able to reproduce this way. Okay, that's correct. This is sexual reproduction. Kailangan sila og male and female gamete. Well done, everyone. So you still remember what you learned yesterday. Now let us proceed to the different types of asexual reproduction in animals. It has been pointed out to me kaganina that one of my examples here is not actually an animal, but remember it's just an example. Okay, example na siya. So forgive me lang sa ani. Okay, so let us go to the first type of asexual reproduction, and that is binary fission. Binary fission, tanaw na to sa pangalan pa lang, no? Binary means duha, and then fission means separation. Okay. So, basically, kini siya na organism, no, nag-divide lang siya into two. And it still has a complete set of chromosomes. So, it's like mitosis, no? From a diploid individual, nag-divide siya into two diploid individuals. It's the same. Mm. So that is binary fission. So your protistas, your bacteria, they're able to reproduce this way. And that is why if you ever get like a bacterial infection, the bacterial infection could spread really fast. It could spread really fast. Nga naman, kay paspas man kaayo mag-reproduce ang imuhang bacteria. The next type is budding. Now, budding is mainly done by your water hydras. These water hydras are really small na mga organisms that are found in the what do you call this, in the depths of your freshwater ponds or kind of mga freshwater na bodies of water. So what happens here? So a stump will begin to grow on the side of the hydra, and then eventually it will grow into a separate hydra, like a baby hydra, and then eventually it will separate itself and it will become a new individual, and it will then grow na dayon, and then it will become another water hydra. So, inaana siya, no? So, that is budding. Next is spore propagation. Now, spore propagation is being done by your fungi, algae, and protozoa. So, what happens here? What are spores? Spores are basically airborne cells. And you will find these particular organisms, getting fungi, algae, and protozoa, in moist areas, in really moist, humid areas. Nga naman, because these spores can travel better through that particular environment. So, muna imong spore propagation. So, think of your bread molds. Think of your bread na wala ni mo gikaon, gibutang lang ni mo sa kilid, and then eventually nagkaamag na siya. So, that's how they reproduce. They reproduce through spores. Next is regeneration and fragmentation. Now, I'm going to talk about these two as being related to one another because they are related to one another. Let's begin with fragmentation. Think of your sea stars or your corals, no? So, for example, you have Patrick star, no? Kanang kuan, sea stars nimo. So, naa kay Patrick star. And then, nag-fragmentation din na siya. So, naay usa ka bukal limb na natangtang sa iya ha, and it will separate itself. So, there will be two pieces na of the sea star, ana siya. And because your oceans have currents, no, nasa lay movement, no, wherever that fragment will drift towards, dadto na siya mag-propagate. So, eventually, kining mga fragments sa imong sea stars, mag-regenerate dayon siya. So, for example, kato si Patrick Star, na wadan siyang ulo, kuan lang siya, ana lang siya, four limbs lang siya, eventually mag-grow din na siya another ulo. Or katong ulo, oh, eventually, i-grow na niya balik ang katong missing na mga appendages niya. So that is regeneration. So think of regeneration as what is being done by your tiki. Kan mga tiki ninyo sa balay, kana siya. So if you notice kana mga tiki, no, if mag-away na sila, magpinaakay na sila, sometimes magpinaakay na sila sa tail. And then katong losing na tiki, yan na lang i-let go yung tail kaysa sa makuan pa siya, no, mamatay pa siya. So it's going to let go of the tail, but do not worry because it will grow the tail back. So, inaana si fragmentation and regeneration. Now, let's go to the last type of asexual reproduction, and that is your parthenogenesis. If you're going to ask yourself, what is the ultimate talent? Usa ang pinaka-talent sa tanang talent sa world? Maybe this one would qualify as one of the best talents ever, kining parthenogenesis. Now, this was actually discovered by a couple of scientists, when a couple of biologists and scientists, a mixture of both, way back, like years ago, like I think more than a century ago, when they went to this island in near Indonesia, no, and there was this population of Komodo dragons. Now, these Komodo dragons, if you didn't know, it's like a type of lizard, no? Mura siya kapamilya niya si monitor lizard, your bayawak. Kana kapamilya niya, but Komodo dragons are significantly larger and more vicious. Oo, so inana sila. Sometimes it will Komodo dragons actually chase human beings. Inana sa bagsik. So kani, when the biologists were able to come to this island, they discovered that a lot of the Komodo dragons in this island actually were female. Like a lot of them, like most of them were females, and there were only a couple of males. So they actually discovered that these Komodo dragons can actually reproduce on their own, female Komodo dragons, that is, because it has been postulated that maybe a long time ago nagka-shortage na sila og male na mga Komodo dragons, and for these large lizards to continue or to persist in surviving, in letting their species survive, dapat mag-evolution sila, mag-evolve sila, no? And that evolution actually is parthenogenesis. Now, what is parthenogenesis? Oh, parthenogenesis is like this. Ang mga female nimo na mga mga Komodo dragons, they're like the female na mga other female animals, wherein the egg cells of these female na mga Komodo dragons, the number of them are already predetermined. So na kay egg cell. Mm-mm. So this is an egg cell. And then there are other egg cells that are found in your ovaries that have not really matured yet. So they're considered to be as polar nuclei. I cannot spell. Oh my goodness. Nuclei, I cannot spell. All right. Now, this polar nuclei, this is like the egg cell. However, it doesn't really have a designated na kanang sex. But in this case, the body of the Komodo dragon itself will trick its own body and try to think or try to trick it into thinking that this polar nuclei is actually male, no? So yan ang i-trick. So therefore, kinida yung silang duha, the ovule and this polar nuclei will merge together just like how the sperm will fertilize the egg cell to form a brand new individual. Ano siya? A diploid brand new individual. Ana. So that is how parthenogenesis happened. So this is also being done by your honeybees, no? Particularly kan inyong queen bee sa mga honeybees ninyo, because well, the queen bee doesn't really have a lot of time for sexual congress. What it does is it needs the thing about their colony is that it needs more pajud na mga worker bees or drone bees, no? So to do that, she will have to do parthenogenesis. Siya. Okay. Okay. Sakit ya kung bato eh. Okay, 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 okay. Okay. So, question. When these Komodo dragons are able to reproduce parthenogenically, what do you think would be the offspring? Will it be genetically unique or will it be a clone? What do you think? Ang offspring sa imong Komodo dragon, when it reproduces parthenogenically, an will it be a completely unique being, a completely unique individual, or will it be a clone? All right. Wala na ilain, tulura. Si Michelle, Margaret, and Jana lang mag-answer. All right. Definitely, it is a clone. Hmm. Now, what do you think would be the sex of the offspring? Will it be female or male? What do you think? Because it just makes sense. So eventually, as the years will go by, no, eventually, masakop na jud sa tanang female na mga Komodo dragons ang island. Mugamay jud ang population sa males. Hangtod na lang jud na ang mabili na lang jud kay female. Oo, so inana siya, no, because they can reproduce on their own. So for the girls out there, for the girls of ABM1, would you prefer to have this kind of skill? What do you think? Gusto mo ilan nga talent? Okay, gusto ko. It's so convenient, right? You don't really need another person to help you with the getting pregnant part. Ana sa Trisha, yes, gusto daw siya. How about the others? Wa mi pakimam. Char. Dili gusto si Michelle, gusto siya kuan lang daw. Natural, kung unsay available. Karon. Micah says yes. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for your answers. Now, I will show you a video so that you can better visualize the different types of asexual reproduction in animals, no? So, these are representative lang ng mga types, not all of them. So, let's go to this video right here. I'm going to turn off the audio because it's very loud, no? The music is very loud here. So first one, we have your binary fission. So as you can see here, this is your protozoa, no? Kani siya. And then it's trying to do mitosis, basically. So as you can see here, kining galihok-lihok bito ng mga parts. These are actually the cilia of your protozoa. It aids them in their motility, how they move around. No? So in ana si binary fission, it's basically mitosis. So from a diploid individual, it will divide into two diploid individuals. Okay. The second one is what's the second one? Spore propagation. So this is being done by your molds, your fungi, kana sila no. Like for example, kini mo bread mold no, kana siya. This is how they reproduce. Hala, wala. Okay. That is how they reproduce. And another one, your fungus no kini inyong mushroom. So ma-release niya iyang spores from the underside of the hood of the mushroom, and then iya din ang spread through the humidity of the area. Ayan. Okay, next one you have your budding. So remember the example that I gave you is the budding being exhibited by your water hydra. Your water hydra again is a freshwater area, a freshwater dwelling now kanang organism, and then it will grow the beginnings of the offspring in its own body, and then eventually mubad out na dayon siya. And then lastly, nada regeneration, just like what I said kanina, no? The sea star will be cut into fragments, and then eventually katong fragments, it will grow the missing appendages. And then that's it. All right. So that is basically your sexual reproduction. All right, so let us proceed to sexual reproduction. Kini experts mo ani. You know this, char lang. O di sa magpa-expert ani ha, kay bata pa mo. You're still children. O dili magpa-expert ani. Now, one of the idiosyncrasies about sexual reproduction and some of these animals is that there are actually animals that are hermaphrodites. Now, what are hermaphrodites? There are animals that are actually both male and female. No, in nature, natural na sa ilaha. No, like for example, your slugs and slugs. Ano mo yung takog slugs and snails baliktad. Mo ni siya ang slugs kini nasa left, man snails kini nasa right. These ones. Now, these animals, they have this what we like to call as love darts, no? Mauni siya ang mag-stab sa each other. So when they have sexual congress, when they engage in sexual congress, they will intertwine with one another. Kana inana mag-intertwine sila, and then they will stab each other with the love dart. Therefore, kining stabbing motion mo deliver din siya sa sperm cell paingon sa ilahang reproductive organ, the female reproductive organ. Therefore, after their sexual congress, both of them will get impregnated. Inana. So that is the beauty of your slugs and your snails. Ni Kyla, do you have a question lang ga? O si Ashley? Ah, okay. All right. So that is the case for the snails. For the clownfishes, no, very kinis na kay kini lahi sa di lang talent, no. Clownfishes are sequential hermaphrodites. What does that mean? Karon pwede siya lalaki, next time pwede siya babae. Then pwede siya mabalik pagkalalaki. Then next time sa pwede siya babae. So on and so forth. Depende kung unsay needed ana nga time. So ina na sa ka-amazing no, they can switch back and forth sa ilahang preferred sex or ilahang kanang presentation, sexual presentation nila. As I've said, depende ra na siya unsay needed ana nga time. Ayan. So that is your clownfish. Now, how about for human beings? Do we have hermaphrodites? Well, we do have hermaphrodites for human beings. So we do have hermaphrodites, but it's not normal for us. It's not normal because if there is indeed if we get to meet a hermaphrodite, there are times when they will have both of the organs jud. They will have like prominent jud silang duha, na sila vagina, then naasa sila penis. However, one of these organs, may it be the male or the female reproductive organ, is not actually functioning. So decoration la ang usa ana niya no. There will be times nga kuan ka ng na yung mga hermaphrodites na although naa sila penis, but their testes, meaning ang ilahang kuan ba ilahang testes ilahang sa ato apang dialect itlog. Ang iyang itlog, oo kana siya, their testes are not developed, wala pa siya ning descend or wala siya ning naog. Naay cases na inana no. I personally have not seen or I have not met a hermaphrodite in person before, but I do understand that because um some of the hermaphrodites no would be a little bit closeted, meaning dili sila magpaila nga hermaphrodites sila, okay, ma-judge man sila sa people. So that is hermaphroditism. Now let's go to fertilization and development. Now remember what is fertilization. Fertilization is your sperm meeting with your ovum, ovule. Nag-fuse silang duha. That's fertilization. There are two types of fertilization na akay internal and external. For our case, kita mga human beings, di ba? Our male na mga kuan, male na mga, what do you call this? Male na human beings, they have penises, right? So, the way that we fertilize is we fertilize internally because the penis will have to get inside the female vagina. So that is internal fertilization. Okay, dadto man ma-release ang sperm and then the sperm will meet the egg. Dadto na sa sulod sa body sa female na human being. While there are some animals like your aquatic animals no nga mag-fertilize externally. For example, kini siya kining baki. Ugh, I don't like frogs. I don't like frogs. Ana, I really don't like frogs to be honest. Like for example, kini inyo mga frogs which are amphibians. The way that they fertilize their egg cells, this is what happens. So this one, kanina sa ubos is your female frog, and kanina sa taas is your male frog. So kini si female frog, when ma-feel na niya nga it's time for her to release her egg cells to get fertilized here in the external environment, it will signal the male. The male will then the male will then sit on top of the female and try to squeeze the female, no? That squeezing action can actually stimulate the female frog to expel, to eject her egg cells into the water. So mani din siya kini mga egg cells diri nga naa sa tubig. Now, this ejection of egg cells will actually then stimulate the male frog to release his sperm. Nada ang sperm. Therefore, the meeting of the sperm and the egg cell will be done externally. Diri gawas sa tubig. Ayan. So that is external fertilization. Now let's go to development. So for example, na-fertilize na ni sperm ang egg cell and then ma-develop na din na siya into a whole new individual. So it will start to develop into a fetus. So from a zygote and then nakan pa na siyang steps no sa the embryo, zygote, ah? Sakto ba ko? Zygote, embryo, zygote. Wait, I'm confused now. So, kana siya, and then eventually may mo siyang fetus. All right. So, when that happens, mag-start na din na-grow ang imuhang offspring. And that is what you call as development. Now, there are three types of, or three ways in which these offspring develop. They can develop oviparously, ovoviviparously, or viviparously. Now, when you think about human beings, no, if you've seen child, saan ka ng mga childbirth na mga videos, or you've seen your mother giving birth, or your sister giving birth, or somebody giving birth, aside from the baby being given birth to, like, gawas baby sa vaginal canal sa imuhang babae nga relative or so, or imong friend, or somebody from the video on YouTube, aside from that, napad na siya muuban, right? The baby is connected to the placenta via an umbilical cord. Okay, so uban anak niya is your placenta. Now, what is your placenta for? That is for the nutrition of the baby. That is where the blood from the mother will get filtered into the placenta, and then will be transported from the placenta to the baby. So, source of nutrition ni siya para sa bata. So, muna siya no, kung nagali presence of placenta, then that is what you call as viviparous na development. Another is in the case of your birds, no? In the case of your birds, like your chickens, your ducks, and etc., they lay eggs, right? Nana man sila. Because if they have their offspring situated inside of their bodies for months, it will be counterintuitive for them because the birds will need to fly. And remember, bugat pi ang itlog, no? So, hindi na siya makalupad. Well, in the case of the chickens, they can only fly a very short distance and a very limited height. So in that case, these eggs, no, these animals that are able to lay eggs, these are what you call, or this particular development is what you call as oviparous development. But then there are also animals, just like some of your snakes and your sharks, wherein they don't lay the eggs. They produce the eggs, yes, but they don't lay the eggs. The eggs will stay inside of the body of the female animal, female snake or female shark. And then eventually, pag ready na rin ang offspring na magawas, magawas siya nga walay itlog. Okay? Or walay calcium na kanang covering niya. Diretso na siya nahalas diretso. So where did the egg go? Where did the eggshell go? The eggshell will remain inside the body of the animal, the female animal, and it will be reabsorbed back to the body of that female shark or female snake. And this particular development is what you call as ovoviviparous. Ayan. So those are the types or the kinds or the ways in which our offspring are able to develop. Ayan. So that is fertilization and development. So I'll skip that, huh? Now, the thing is, let's look at the pros and cons of sexual and asexual reproduction, no? So, pros and cons niya. Now, let's look at asexual reproduction first. Asexual reproduction does not need another parent, right? It only needs one parent. So, will this be fast or will this be slow? I mean, will this take a long time to do? Or what do you think? Dugay ba di siya mahimo or kuan dali ra? Dali ra. Okay, correct ng dali ra. Ngano man? Kay usa naman ang parent, di ba? Pwede siya reproduce on its own. So, no need for a mate. Di ba kung sa sexual reproduction, kay dugay pa kay mangita pa kag mate nimo, like tanawa gid ang mga iring ninyo, di ba? Mangita na silang partner, dugay kay mahitabo. Mag-away pa na sila sa inyong mga atop. Mag-away pa sa mga kinarwasay pa na sila. It's a very long process. Like, if you're going to look at ostriches, they have to do the mating dance pa, mag-mating dance. Some of your birds will do the singing pa. So, it takes a long time, even for human beings, right? Taas pa kay ang time para mangita og mate. While your asexual reproduction, dali na siya. So that is a major advantage of asexual reproduction. It's really fast. It's a no-brainer. Like, it doesn't really take a lot of energy because, again, it only involves one parent, right? But the thing about that is, ang pinakaapan anak niya is that the major disadvantage of your asexual reproduction is that there is no genetic variation in the offspring at all. Remember, through the examples that we have cited kaganina under the asexual reproduction, All of the offspring in all of those situations are clones of the parent. So, for example, if the parent is prone to this disease, so therefore, ang iyasang anak is also prone to that disease. Same og strengths, same rasad og weaknesses. Think of it this way. Like for example, kana yung Mycobacterium tuberculosis. This is the type of bacteria that actually causes your tuberculosis. Have you heard of that disease? It's a lung disease. So, um, that is why even after pila ka years, no, even after I don't know if how many years na jud ning kining TB na treatment, but this treatment that we have now has been around for ages. It has been around for many, many years already. The four antibiotics that could treat Mycobacterium tuberculosis, that could eradicate it, it's the same. And why is it the same? Because again, these bacteria, they don't really have a lot of variation. So kung usa to ilang weakness before, it will be the same until right now. So mao na siya iyahang main disadvantage. Now, when you think of it this way, like sa sexual reproduction, no? When you think of it this way, ang sexual reproduction nimo, important din siya because it promotes genetic variation. Now, why is genetic variation very important? Because again, naatay diversity in our genetic makeup. Pangit magunang pari-pareho lang ta because we will be prone to the same diseases and we will never learn. Our bodies will never learn how to survive because of that. Now, if that's the case, if we are prone to the same diseases, dali ra ma-eradicate ang ato ang species or dali ra ma-eradicate ang Homo sapiens na species. So that's a no-no. No, no, jud na siya. And that is why it only makes sense that we really have to sort of like penalize or even illegalize is that a word, but make illegal kanang mga incestuous and inbreeding na mga relationships. You know, kanang mga inbreeding relationships and incestuous is in like you are copulating with an immediate family member, like your brother, your sister, your father, or your mother. Well, yuck. Or inbreeding, as in like you're copulating with your cousin or your uncle or your aunt. Eee. Oo. That is a major cringe. Major cringe na siya. Why is that the case? Because, well, aside from, mm, copulating with your relative, ah, you're still going to be prone to the same diseases. Like, for example, in your family, uso sa inyo ha, okay, itatag example ha, si, hmm, wala may lalaki dinhi. Puro naman ni babae sa chat box. Walay lalaki. Hmm, walay lalaki. Okay, si Ryan na lang. Si Ryan na 'tong example. For example, walay uyab si Ryan diri 'no, na EBM1. For example, uyab si Ryan og si Michaela. Okay, for example lang na siya. So, for example, kini si Ryan ug si Michaela, they are cousins. Like first degree, inana nga level. First degree cousins. So, you will be coming from the same family basically. You come from the same family, you have very similar na mga weaknesses and strengths in terms of your genetics. So for example, in your family uso kaayo ang Down syndrome, which is a recessive trait, no? Recessive na siya nga kanang genetic na disease. So also on Down syndrome. Now, when that happens, if Michaela and S- Ryan will copulate, mm, magkaanak sila, ilang anak will have a very high probability that they or the child will have Down syndrome. Like dako kayong posibilidad. Versus kung si Michaela mangita siya lain, na dili niya kapamilya, wala siya kabalo sa genetic makeup, dili daw uso sa ila ang kuan, ang Down syndrome. Therefore, ang ilahang anak will have a lesser incidence or a lesser probability of getting that disease or getting Down syndrome. So inana siya no. So that is the major advantage ni sexual reproduction. All right, let's move on to human reproduction. This is the last part. Last na lang niya. Kinisha, let's just breeze through this because I know you know this already. I know you know this already, Jud. Pero ma'am, babae man ni ma'am, kailangan jud makabalo mi ani ma'am. Yes, kailangan. The more knowledge you have, the more power you have. Charot lang. Okay, so let us begin with the male reproductive tract. Now, in the male reproductive tract, mali siya ang mga, I'll just mention the very important the mga parts, no? Very prominent and important parts. So, this is the penis right here. The penis is full of like erectile muscle. It's basically erectile muscle. Mao nang sensitive sad kay siya, kay daghan mo siya nerve endings, no? So, if matouch na siya gamay or ma-arouse siya, mo tindog din na siya because again, it is primarily made up of erectile muscle. Kanit, shit, mo ana rin na siya. It's the same type of muscle that you can find sa kanang bitong sa inyong pores of your hair. Kada siya kung mamugnaw bitaw mo kay di mo erect ang inyong hairs sa inyong skin o kada siya. That's the same type of nerve endings and also muscles, no? Okay. Now, ang imong testes plural, testis singular. So this testis, kani siya ga-produce ni siya og sperm. Now, the testes or each of the testes have a tube that runs from the testes itself to the kining imuhang seminal vesicle and your seminal vesicle. Now, this tube is what you call as your vas deferens. So, if you hear that term, kanang medical procedure called vasectomy, that is actually the cutting of your vas deferens. It's either cutting or gitay lang jud siya really really tight. Ana. So, ngano man na siya, ngano man ang naay vasectomy. This is being done fathers, among males na dili na bitaw gusto magkaanak kana sila. That is vasectomy. Now, this is connected again to the seminal vesicle and then also to the prostate because the sperm should have a vehicle. Okay? So, di ba ang sperm kay i-release man na siya inside the vagina of the female. So, the thing about the vagina of the female is, ang atong vagina, mga girls, ang atong vagina is acidic. Ano acidic man na siya para maka-fight off siya og infections, no? But the thing about the acidic environment of the vagina is that your sperms are also not will not be able to survive as well. So, mao lang, kailangan siya og vehicle, kailangan siya og sakyanan. And that sakyanan is actually the semen. Okay? So, ang sperm naa sa semen. That's the liquid that basically you know of. So kanang inyong kanang sa semen sa male, that is actually the opposite of acidic. So the opposite of acid is base. Therefore, basic ang imuhang semen. So diri po agi ang sperm from the testis to the vas deferens and then mo agi ni siya makigmix din siya with the semen from the seminal vesicle and with the help of the prostate, no, it will eject those things through the urethra dayon. Kini siya nga agianan right here. Now, as you notice, the urethra, there's only one. No? There's only one. There's only one urethra. Usala na siya kaagianan. Usala agianan for both the urine and the semen. Okay. Because tanawa ang tubo. Connected siya sa bladder. Bladder basically is where your urine is being stored and also connected to the seminal vesicle. So that is your male reproductive part. Okay. Now let's go to the human female reproductive part. This is your uterus. Try na picture, ha? This is your uterus right here. Girls, your uterus is actually as even smaller than this actually. Kanang kumo sa inyong kamot, actually smaller than that. or it really depends. Some would have this big kind of kumo sa kamot, or something smaller than the kumo of the hand. Kumo sa kamot. All right. So this will be your vagina. This is where your penis, this is the entrance of the penis, no naman siya agianan, no? And then the amazing thing about your vagina is, although it is only like 3 to 4 inches, oh, it can actually accommodate a larger penis. It can actually stretch up to 8, sometimes even 10 inches. Talented ka, no? All right. And then the opening between your vagina and your uterus is your cervix. So a lot of, not really a lot, but there are a number of women that have reproductive system na mga cancers. So usually cervical cancer na siya. Okay? And then kanidayon siya, this will then lead to your uterus. Mananina siya. Mananina siya imong uterus. Dili ang location sa fertilization of your egg cell. Dili sad mag-develop ang imong fetus. Ana. So ina na siya ka-powerful. Although gamay kay siya, it will enlarge, balloon size ang imuhang uterus when you get pregnant. And on either sides of the uterus are your fallopian tubes. Kana siya. These are your fallopian tubes that are connected to your ovaries. There will be 2 ovaries here. You have your left and your right. So, during the month, kanang sa inyong cycle, na ay ma-release ana na egg cell either from the right or from the left nimo na ovary. Then ha. So, kung na kanya ma-release na egg cell from the ovary, mo-release na siya dayon, 'di ba, inana man na siya kanang dugon bitaw ta girls, ana. Before ta dugon, ang egg cell nimo kay mo travel pa na siya from the ovary to the fallopian tube, and magtambay din na siya here sa imong uterus, no? So that one, it will then mature there. Mag-mature din ang egg cell dara. Now, kini imong egg cell, gahulat na ni siya nga ma-fertilize og sperm cell. It's just waiting. Okay? So, while it waits, it needs to be in a comfortable na lugar. So, dapat na ani siya kutsyon, dapat na ani siya kanang kuan, dapat comfortable siya. So, for your egg cell to be comfortable here, dapat naatay hormones na mutaas. Naatay estrogen and progesterone. If you have if you have sisters, if you have mothers that take birth controls, kanang pill bitaw na birth control, mao ni siya ang component atong birth control. It's just synthetic is estrogen and progesterone. So, kini high levels of estrogen and progesterone would actually stimulate your cells dinhi sa uterus na mag further pa og divide mo, magdaghan pa siya. So pagdaghan niya, mahimo na siyang blob of tissue. Okay. This blob of tissue is actually making your egg cell comfortable. It kanang kapit, kanang bitaw mo kapit siya sa egg cell, kana siya. And at the same time, if a sperm will come and fertilize the egg cell, once to kini siya ma-develop into an embryo, kini dayon siya, kining tissue right here, eventually mahimo na siyang placenta. Okay? Eventually. However, kung dili kung walay meeting sa imuhang sperm o sa imong egg cell, you did not have sexual intercourse during that time, what will happen here? Eventually, after days of your estrogen and progesterone being high, it will now go down. So pag naoga na niya, ingon siya nga, ay, wala may sperm ning abot, medyo useless atong efforts, exit na ta, ana si estrogen o si progesterone. So may exit na din na sila in the form of your menstruation. Okay. So, dugon ka, mugawas na din na siya. And that is why for the girls here, if you're wondering why, dugon ka, pero dili lang siya dugo ang gagawas, right? There's like little clots, na ka ng mga little tissues, ana-ana. It's not pure blood. No. That is actually because, again, that is because of this tissue formation na nag-start na diri sa uterus. Oh, nag-start na siya. So it really depends, no? Sometimes the menstruation is very like liquid, 100% blood, ana. But there are also times nga medyo daghan siyang blood clots. Those blood clots are actually your tissues that were developed by your estrogen and progesterone. All right. So that is basically your female reproductive system. Ayan. So you know that ang sa kuan sa female vulva, no? Oh, natay kuan ana tulo ka importante nga buslot. Natay urethra. So aside contrary to the males nga usa ra gyud ilang buslot, no? Ang kita duha ka buok natay vagina and naasad tay urethra. So diri mo agi ang ihi. So this is where your urine passes, and this one, this is your birth canal. This is the agianan of your baby and the agianan of the penis. Kana siya. And then lastly, your anus. Very importante ng anus. Okay. So, that is all for today. Muna siya ang ato ang human reproductive system, no?